Well, Jalito, we all have moments in our lives where there was a turning point. Something that changed our life or changed something um, that made us go left or right down the path of life. Um, I've had a couple of these turning moments, but one moment in particular that kind of really stands out to me. See, I grew up in a kind of a construction world. Growing up, my stepdad did construction. My grandfather, my uncles, they're all truck drivers. And my very first job, like my real job, I worked at a lumber company called Southern Lumber. And it was one of the last lumber companies here in Houston that was still a true lumber company. We had a mill on site, and if you wanted to cut a piece of, you wanted to come in there and say, hey, I want a beam that is 15 feet long, 13 inches high, and 8 inches wide, thick. Something weird, not a 2x4, not a 4x4, not a 4x6, a weird dimension. We had logs. We go throw a log on there, and we could mill this log into your 15 by 13 by whatever wide you want it. We could create your lumber for you. And of course, Home Depot and Lowe's put us out of business because, one thing, those were indoor stores. Our yard was outdoor. All the lumber was stored outdoors. It was a lumber yard. Anyway, so I grew up doing construction. That's what I grew up doing. And once I left home, then the lumber company went out of business and everything, and I started pouring concrete. Then after pouring concrete, I ended up moving. After pouring concrete, I ended up doing plumbing. Yeah, did some plumbing for a while, and then I moved to Florida. And Florida was a different world. Florida wasn't like Houston. Houston had a lot of industry. Florida was a vacation, tourism, retirement state. Not a lot of industry. And my first few months was kind of hard when I got to Florida, because I still had that mindset of construction. That's what I know. That's what I want to do. Construction. So one of my first gigs in Florida was work at a funeral home, all places. But that wasn't steady work. That was just too hit and miss, because, well, I hate to be morbid, people just wasn't dying fast enough and steady enough. So I went to a place called, my old backup. So a place called Labor Ready. And I had a car, so I had an advantage. I could go in and I can pick my jobs for myself. And usually I find the jobs that are most, highest paid jobs I can find. And back in those days, working at Labor Ready, doing a roofing job, it paid like $7 an hour. $7.50 an hour or something like that, for what I paid, if I remember right. But there was days I was doing roofing jobs. There's days I was digging ditch. There's days I was sweeping. I had weird jobs, The Jupiter Lighthouse had to be restored. Some brickwork had to be done. And we had to build a scaffold all the way 92 feet up into the air around the scaffold, around the lighthouse. So a company come in there and restore the brickwork and everything. It's random work. And it paid the bills. I mean, it was hard work. I ain't gonna lie, it was hard. This was hard work I did back then. I mean, it did pay a lot, but it paid the bills. And then my ex-wife, first wife, her and her sister worked at a place called Garden of Life, GOL. It was a Christian-based health food company. They do health food supplements. They're still around. If you go to Whole Foods, you still see them. And well, I applied for a job there and work at the warehouse. The warehouse is in Jupiter, Florida, filling orders basically. And I got hired. And so that was my first, in fact, the warehouse had AC in it. And that was my first really good job. I mean, I did some security there also. Did some security in Florida. It didn't pay good. But Garden of Life, man, I worked there for in the warehouse for a minute, and got I worked good with the guys, and we get order in. I want this and this and that and that and this, and We had our buggies, and we would get that order. Each one had a good order, and we would, everything was like a path. You would go, okay, 2 of these, okay, 1 of these, okay, 5 of these, and then that would be handed off with the order list and all the whatever they ordered, hand off to the packing guys, and those guys were, we had one guy, he could see an order and choose the right size box. And he would then pack that box up, and part of the job that the packing guys did was to verify everything put in the box was on the list, nothing extra, nothing missing. I did that for a while. Now a rumor camp kind of popped up in the warehouse. There's a term called being pigeonholed. They kind of felt that no matter what job, what position ever opens up in corporate, they will always be overlooked. And sometimes it's kind of true. It happens. When you are good at your job, and you're fast and you're efficient, and it's for you to move out of that to a different branch, a different department, all your knowledge goes with you, and a person hiring in that place to backfill that position gone will not have to relearn. If you're there 5 years, 6 years, that's 6 years of experience going with you. This new person has to start that over again. So a lot of companies. I knew someone who 35 years worked where I work, and he was in international shipping. He knew all the laws for international shipping. We shipped a lot of stuff to Arabic countries and Muslim countries, and he knew all the laws, what can and can't go, what's allowed and not allowed in those countries. And no matter why he wanted to, where he wanted to go, he was never leaving that position because he was too valuable. So, rumor was at GOL that if you're in a warehouse, you're kind of stuck there. You ain't ever getting out of that warehouse, but they need manpower to officially do orders. And we did order. I mean, we did. It just once you fill that one order, throw it to the packing guys. You're going right back front of the line again. Next order. Start the process over again. It was just a constant. Well, there was a job opening opened up in corporate. It was like a support services type of position, kind of what I do now, just not as large of a scale. They needed someone to set rooms. They needed someone to do a little IT work. They needed someone to do mail. Yeah, just and then a little bit of handyman stuff. Someone needed a whiteboard hung the whiteboard. If someone needed this done, that done, hurricanes come through, we got to sandbag the doors and duct tape all the seams. That's what I did. And so a job opening opened up, and three of us applied for it. Now, going back to my construction background, I quit school. I quit high school. My grades sucked, and really, just kind of a way of thinking that we had back in those days. My mother never went to school. She got married. She was 13. My grandfather was a migrant worker. He worked at picking fruit in Florida before he became a truck driver. So he never went to school. He never learned how to read or write and everything. So that I followed that footstep, and that's part of the problem. Sometimes when you follow family footsteps, sometimes you have to step out of that path and find another path, or just make your own. So I applied for the job, knowing that I quit high school. I can't do math. I can't do long division, long multiplication. Never learned. Give me a calculator, I can. 'Cause I had give me a calculator. I can do formulas. I can calculate torque, torque loads, and I can do all that stuff. So I applied for this job at Garden of Life, and so did 2 of my coworkers. Now, they came to the interviews. His name was Harold Strassler. He was the director of sports services. They went to the interview where we're a warehouse. They just during lunchtime ran down to West Palm Beach from Jupiter and applied, interviewed. shorts, t-shirt, tennis shoes. Now, what does this dude do? This dude hops to the bathroom as Superman, took his shorts and t-shirt off, and put on a full suit and tie. Went down. I was the last one to interview. And this was the turning point in my life that changed the direction of my life. For the most part, for where I'm at now. I sat down in his office, and we kind of talked about the warehouse, and talked about, you know, the job, what's going to be going on, the job that I'm applying for. I had no idea that I'm gonna have to go on the computer and use Oracle to you know, Oracle, and I think Archibus, I think we used to do work orders. And when tickets are put in and things are done, I had to go in and close these tickets, and I didn't know that. And here was the problem: I had never been on a computer a day in my life. .com. My brother was in the computers. My sister in the computers. Me, I thought they were stupid. .com? What's a .com? What's a website? That's useless. Stupid. Didn't learn it. Because my brain was what makes money, what makes life go forward. Pour concrete, throw lumber, plumbing. You know, industry that, you know, that keeps society functioning. What is the .com? I don't know what it is. It ain't going nowhere in life. How I was wrong on that. So Mr. Strassler sat me down in his office, and we talked about, you know, everything. And I was like, okay, computers, okay, that's gonna be like, you know, I see people do it, clicking that little mouse thing, click, and do whatever, and type. He stood up from his desk and said, Mr. Stevens, have a seat. And I sat down at his desk. In front of me was a screen, a keyboard, and a mouse. His screen has all these little files open and everything, and he told me the one thing that I thought was gonna break this deal. Mr. Stevens, go online. Now, again, this was 2000s. You know, the internet was still kind of new. Not everybody was, you know, we didn't have smartphones with Google built into them. Mr. Stevens, go online. You know, I have seen people click on a keyboard. I've seen people have that mouse. I had no idea that mouse was attached to a cursor. I just saw them moving, clicking, and I sat there and looked at all these icons on his desk up in there, and I had no idea what to even click on. And so I honestly said, Mr. Strassler, I have no idea how to. Honest, don't lie. That I was gonna fake that to make it. I was gonna make it. Ain't no faking that. Mr. Strassler, I don't know how. He then came behind me. Okay, here's your mouse. Wiggle it. When you wiggle it, notice there's a little arrow. When you put the arrow over an icon, it turns into a hand. This E, there was no Google back, no Chrome back then. There was an E, a blue E. This E, double click it. I double clicked. There was Google. There was the website, World Wide Web. He then said, type in our company and go to the website. Mouse. Okay. Search bar. Garden of, not type that good. Garden of Life. Enter. Now, it was years later. I had a backstory of what was going on with that little interview. So I can assume right there the point that I just blew the interview, because the guys that came in before me and interviewed, they knew computers, because they were in there sometimes printing out all the orders for the order we're filling and everything. So they were on computers daily. They knew computers. I didn't know nothing about computers. 2 days later, our warehouse manager, him is Raymond. He came to me and said, Mr. Stevens. Now, see, I didn't. You know, it's kind of polite to go to your manager and say, hey, I'm going to apply for this position out in the corporate, or out, you know, to give him a heads up that he might be losing an employee. I didn't tell him because honestly, I didn't think I was gonna get the job because I kept hearing, you know, that hey, we're all pigeonholed, we're in the warehouse, we ain't going to corporate, we're not corporate, you know, material, we're warehouse material. About 2 days later, Mr. Stevens, why don't you tell me you apply for an outside job, you know, outside in the corporate office? I said, well, because I kind of knew I was gonna get it, you know. Plus, I sat down and told to go online. I didn't know how to do none of that, so you know, I applied for it, but honestly, I didn't think I was gonna get it, so it would be no harm. I didn't tell nobody. And he said, well, he got it. I got the job. Now, it was about a year or so later. I had about to leave the company and move back to Houston, in fact. And me and Harold Strasser were talking, and I told him, I said, you know, I honestly didn't think I was gonna get this job, you know, when I first applied for it, because I know nothing about computers, nothing about it. When you sat me that desk and told me go online, I said my mind was a blank. I did not know what to even the first thing to do. You know, I didn't know. He says when you walked into the office, I already knew I wanted to hire you. You know, your coworkers came in shorts and t-shirts and tennis shoes. You came in a full suit. And I liked your tie. In fact, I still have that tie. Still have the suit, I think, too. I think I still have the suit. I got chunky over the years. I can't wear it now, but I still got the suit. He said, when you walked in my office, dressed like that, I already saw the foundation. I already saw you had, I'm not bragging on myself, you had a solid foundation. Now I need to know how much of the structure is built on that foundation so far. So when I sat you down at my desk to go online, that was the basic computer skills. Go there, go online, go to a website. And you didn't know how to do it. He says you had a solid foundation. Everything else I could teach you. Everything else that you needed was learnable. So here I am, 2026. Because I left Florida in 2005, I guess it was 4 or 5, somewhere in there, and came back to Houston. Now, when I came back to Houston, sure enough, you know, I had to find a job. And when you couldn't find a job immediately, you know, and this is where don't ever let pride get in your way of doing things. You got to pay bills. You know, if you're looking for a job and you can't find that job that you've been doing that pays good money, go get a lesser job that pays the dang bills. So I came to Houston, support services. I couldn't find none of that here in Houston, nowhere. You know, I knew Archibus, I knew Oracle, I knew you know, I couldn't find no job like that here in Houston. So what did I do? Briefly moved back to plumbing, because I knew that. From there, Paradigm, back to concrete. Not pouring concrete, not raking concrete, not busting my butt. Concrete inspector. Paradigm Engineering Consultants. I started working there and inspecting concrete. You know, again, I can't do math, longhand. If you need to be, you know, calculate torque loads and stuff, give me a calculator. I know the formulas to do that. So I worked as a concrete inspector until I found a job where I'm at now. And once I had that job, you know, interviewed with it. And ironically, all the stuff that I learned in Florida, you know, like Oracle stuff, that wasn't even needed. You know, this was a common services type job. Common services / mailroom. Now, I've been there over 20 years. I guarantee if I had not taken that chance at the warehouse in Florida, at Garden of Life, taking that chance to apply for a job that in my mind I wasn't going to get, more likely I'll either still be at the warehouse. I would have climbed the ladder in the warehouse, but more likely I'll be still in that warehouse. Or if life had changed and I ended up moving back to Houston anyway, well, construction, concrete inspector, you know, I mean, yeah, my life would have changed different than it is right now. But I took that chance. And I think everyone, you know, never And that goes back to me thinking .coms were stupid. That became a foundation of society today. Computers, you know, everything is a .com. Yeah, my GoPro just overheated. I got a problem trying to figure out how to keep it from overheating. Anyway, yeah, you know, .com, .gov, .org. You know, 25, 30 years ago, I would have never known that would be a foundation of our society. So, you know, I've learned over the years, learn things. You know, once I learned the computers, I got my first email address. Then got myself a MySpace. Of course, MySpace went away. Facebook, got me Facebook. I got a YouTube channel. You know, never stop learning, and never be afraid to take that chance to apply for that job that you think you're not qualified for, or you think you can't get it. Because if you have one thing, if you have the right manager, but also the right attitude, get a foundation, and anything that needs to be done above what you know, it can be learned. Nowadays, you want to do something, spreadsheet, Excel, go to YouTube. Just go on YouTube, have tutorials how to do that stuff. You know, our life when it comes to knowledge, we live in a society now that knowledge is absolutely for free everywhere. It just you getting off your lazy butt and getting it done. So, Garden Life changed my life. It changed, you know, it was a pathway that took me off the beaten path of what I probably would have been doing, you know, if I hadn't taken it, a lifestyle. And anyway, I'm not say it wasn't easy, you know. I've been in the same company now, same place now for over 20 years. And yeah, I mean, things change. We have a work order system nowadays, and no heat on the company. It was literally like it was built in 1995 and has never been upgraded. It is such a, you know, it's a work order system that's very archaic. Too many steps to get things done. Nowadays things can be a little more streamlined. But it's all about learning it, you know. I go on YouTube and learn it. Learn Corrigo. It's called Corrigo. Go to YouTube. There's tutorials on YouTube how to work Corrigo. So never be afraid to reach out and learn new things, because you know technology is changing. We have AI now. AI is a new technology. You know, apply it. In my videos here now, I'm starting to use AI now to do videos. You know, use it, learn it. You know, I don't know what the future is going to hold. You know, I know back when when I was saying .com was stupid, useless, I was wrong. You know, I hear people saying, "Oh, AI is useless. It's not going nowhere." Don't be me. You know, 30 years ago. Don't be that. Don't be that person. Embrace AI. Embrace it. You know, SpaceX. You know, Blue Glenn. I know it just blew up recently, but our future is gonna be very interesting, because I know where we were 30 years ago. You know, 20 years ago. You know, I know what we had in year 2000. Just 2026. My cell phone. It has 1 terabyte of memory. 20 years ago, terabyte of memory, a desktop computer didn't have that. You know, going for older than that, your floppy had a gig. You know, so don't be surprised. You know, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years from now. You know, have phones. You know, talk about, oh yeah, I had a terabyte. That's all you had back in those days. Don't be surprised to see technology shrink and get more powerful. You know, and that is what, you know, AI is kind of scary though, because computers have shrunk, gotten smaller, but yet more efficient, more powerful. So But yeah, we all have turning points in our life, and that was a turning point of mine. That almost didn't happen. Almost didn't happen. So I hope this video was inspirational. Well, I don't know how long the video is. GoPro, I gotta Google it. I gotta find out, because GoPro in the summertime it overheats. You know, you get a lot of good video time from it, but when it gets a certain temp, it cuts itself off. And I gotta kind of find out why my GoPro. I gotta find, not why, because that's a common thing for GoPros, is summer days in the heat, the sunshine, overheating. I gotta find a solution to keep it from overheating, or at least mitigate it a little bit. So learn. It's all about learning. Life is learning. You know, go from stone to a sharp stick, to a spear, to an arrow. You know, from arrow to a rifle. It's all about learning. Never stop learning, and never stop taking those chances that might change your life. Haki Sachiki.